Welcome to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. And now here's your host, Wade T. Lightheart.
Want awesome health? How about doubling your energy? With our free Awesome Health course, you can get a new video and lesson every single day for 84 straight days. The course covers everything from optimizing your digestion, nutrient intake, correct health issues, including weight, skin, energy, immune system, and so much more. The course could easily be worth $200 or $300 for, and yet it's 100% free when you go to bioptimizer.com. That's bioptimizers.com. Once you're there, just enter your name and email to get the first 3 phases of the Bioptimization report. You'll get the report immediately and begin getting your video lessons each and every day from there on in.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's Wade T. Lightheart from Bioptimizers with another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. And today we're going to talk about a topic that we can now speak about, haven't been able to for a number of years. We're going to talk about the spike protein and what that actually means for your health. And of course, we have today a special guest expert, Sara Banta, who has been on the podcast several times before. She's the owner of Accelerated Health Products and the host of Accelerated Health Radio and TV, which reaches over 400,000 listeners a month. She helps her clients and listeners reach their optimal state of health through proper frequency, enhanced detox supplements, cutting-edge technologies and modalities. Her journey hit rock bottom about 15 years ago after suffering from Crohn's disease. Anybody that's had that knows how much that sucks. Hormonal issues, PCOS, and heavy metal toxicity. That's not a good combination. And after Western medicine couldn't give her the answers or solutions, she discovered natural solutions that actually worked. And that kind of catapulted her into the career she has today. And she joins us again from her home in California. Welcome to the show, Sara.
Thanks, Wade. I always love being with you and chatting about health and all things, optimizing life, right? That's what we were talking about before coming on. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great. I use your, I always smile because I use your iodine, your salt, with the iodine salt, which is really great. If people haven't checked that out, I'm a big salt fanatic, and your salt's awesome. I really like it. You've got a lot of great products, but I use the salt every day. So I'm like, I think of Sara every day because I'm throwing the salt on my salads.
Well, that's the best thing. It's funny. My husband is the biggest skeptic, and I always laugh that I have to make sure I know what I'm talking about when it comes to health and supplements to get him on board. But with the salt, he's like, Sara, you need to market this in just the markets for the regular Joe, because I don't care about the benefits. It just tastes good.
Yeah, it's really good. It's a really good salt. So anyways, make sure you check out her products, folks. And if you want really great salt, check out this salt. It's great. It tastes awesome. It's fantastic. And it works. So let's talk about this whole spike protein conversation. I've been the last, now I guess we're going on 3-4 years, whatever long it's been since this whole thing talked about. There's so much conversation about what a spike protein is, the spike protein, how a virus works with spike protein, what the jab's doing in spike proteins. And I just want to start for people who may not have done investigation or are confused about what out there, because it's very easy to get confused. There's a lot of conflicting information. Let's get into this and try and break it down for our listeners. Like, what is the spike protein that they've been talking about for the last few years and all the variances that are out there?
Okay. Yeah, it is confusing, and you might feel like you can't ask what the spike protein is because you're assumed that everyone knows what it is. That's not the truth. So the spike protein is a crucial component of the SARS-CoV-2 virus that caused COVID-19. And this protein is responsible for the virus's ability to infect the human cells And because of this chain reaction that has been caused in the body, new unexplained health conditions are surfacing, a lot of unexplained weight gain. People have been coming out of the woodwork, Wade, saying, Sara, I used to have rheumatoid arthritis or cancer. It was in remission for 10 years and now it's back with a vengeance. All of these things are coming back. So we're going to get into what's going on. The spike protein is a glycoprotein that's composed of two subunits, S1 and S2. The S1 subunit contains the receptor binding domain, which binds to the human angiotensin converting enzyme 2, or also known as the ACE2 receptor on the surface of the human cell. And
so hang on a second before we just went into a long piece. So basically, there's a little prong on this virus that sticks out. That's why they call it a spike. And there's like a little docking station on your cells. And the virus sticks that spike in the little docking space. And that's where it begins to start sending its messages into the cell to disrupt its normal function. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
So then what happens is the ACE2 is responsible for converting angiotensin 2 to angiotensin 1 through 7. When this conversion's normal and it's done in the liver. So remember, you got to love your liver. It manages insulin regulation, fluid balance, vasodilation. It's anti-fibrotic, so it helps with fibroids in the body. It's anti-apoptotic, and we're going to get into apoptosis, which you want in your body. And it's also involved with ovulation and follicular development. Let's look at fertility rates right now. And it's anti-inflammatory.
Wow. So this is like, basically, this is a really key receptor site and why it can have such a wide variety of potential problems if any one of those 7 different areas get dysregulated in the body, because it could show up with thousands of different symptoms that people could experience because of what the important pathway that is. Would that be an accurate statement?
Absolutely. Inflammation is the root cause of all disease. So you have inflammation, that's where dis-ease is going to show up. Insulin regulation, insulin resistance, and toxicity are the 2 things that accelerate age. And it's insulin resistance is linked to all the metabolic disease. So if you have insulin dysregulation, then you're going to create even more disease. So for instance, if you ate an apple 3 years ago, same person, same profile, and you ate an apple today, you might have an actual over-exaggerated insulin response to that apple. Well, insulin's job is fat storage, right? So even though you're eating the same apple with the same blood sugar spike, but you have more insulin, you are actually going to go hypoglycemic possibly, but actually gain weight unexplainably.
Right. So for our listeners, essentially, inflammation is like rusting. It's oxidative damage over time, which in all physical beings are subjected to a certain amount of. You can accelerate it or slow it down based on your lifestyle choices. So if you're eating junk food and putting chemicals all over yourself and living in a chemical place and breathing toxic fumes, you accelerate the rusting rate. And if you're taking all the health advice, perhaps that you advocate, or some of it, and eating clean foods and doing all these elements and making sure your minerals are up and etc., then you can reduce your kind of predisposition for aging. Now, what we're talking about here in the insulin side of things is over time, our insulin response tends to degenerate as we age. We just don't, it's why you can eat anything when you're 15, and when you're 50, it's like looking at a carbohydrate or something makes you fat. And this is really an inflammatory response. So insulin comes up and says, I can't handle this. Let's store it in a fat cell. We'll deal with it later.
Yes.
Okay.
And then what you have also, And we're going to get into the other causes over the last 3 years of why insulin resistance and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease have increased significantly, and how it's like almost this perfect storm of health issues. So we'll first go into the spike protein, but I want to make sure we get into the insulin resistance and fatty liver as well. So you're going to see an increase in vasoconstriction in the body.
That's the narrowing of the arteries and blood capillaries inside the body, and that's problematic because that's what can trigger, well, everything from migraine headaches to strokes and heart attacks.
And are we not hearing about people die suddenly with heart issues? So
by the way, there was a recent report for those out there, and this is a statement. When this whole thing started, I said, we're really not going to know what's going on until we get the life insurance data. And life insurance, for most people, they're called actuary tables, and they build out using massive amounts of death rates inside the world about at whatever age you're at, 20, 30, 40, 50. They build a table out so that the company can make money saying, well, we know that there's 1 million people, or 1 billion people, or however many that people is, we can charge this rate, and we're guaranteed that over the course of however many clients we have, we'll make money. It's 3 sigmas event in a life expectancy is considered a black swan event. If you have a 3 sigma change and it it'll be like, a war broke out, or there was a big plague, or a natural disaster occurred that created a large amount of people in a given age category to die at a given moment. I was listening to a person on Patrick Bet-David the other day talking about this, and it's a 13 sigma shift in all causes mortality in the ages of what's considered normal healthy to, like 20s and 30s and 40s. It's 13 sigma. So I'm not saying that, I'm not making any claims about that, but I'm collaborating that what you're saying anecdotally is showing in actuary tables is something very strange is going on here in the world. And we're here to help mitigate it.
Yeah, no one's talking about it. Fertility rates obviously have decreased significantly. And we're going to talk about the good news. If you're sitting there freaking out that you are exposed or got the jab or whatever, we've got some good news coming. So just sit and wait. But what also people are noticing is water retention. And Wade, I'm a Pisces moon. So if you know anything about astrology, my body loves to retain water. Well, if I travel or I'm exposed to someone that has been vaccinated, or if they have COVID, my body tells me, because I retain a ton of water, and that's what goes on in my body. Now, have I tested positive in the last couple of years? I've tested positive twice, no symptoms, no missing work, no missing a beat as far as mom and husband goes and all of that. But what I do know is when I get exposed, it's almost like when you were little and you had the chicken pox, and then if you got exposed again, you weren't going to get a second case, but your body says, oh yeah, I remember that virus. Let's boost up the immune system. And it's almost a reminder. Well, when I get exposed to COVID or someone with it, I get a skin rash and I retain fluid. And the skin rash is the Coxsackie virus, which shows how viruses work in your body, where they live in this nice microbiome of the fungus, the viruses, the bacteria, all live in this great little life here. But when a threat comes in, it will suppress the immune system. So one of the ones that might be real strong in my body is going to flare up a little bit. My daughter, she can have Epstein-Barr, and that will flare up for her if she gets exposed. So it's kind of like, okay, what symptoms am I feeling? Well, another one is the water retention. So that's something to think about, because I've also heard a lot of people talk about that. You will see also an increase in aldosterone release, which is a stress hormone.
Well, by the way, just aldosterone, as we called it in bodybuilding, so aldosterone, I don't know which one it is, but this is another water retaining hormone that happens if you dehydrate yourself too much. Bodybuilders would experience holding water on stage, and you have to regulate that. So again, these would all be contributing to kind of weight gains, puffiness, bloated, all that sort of stuff.
That's interesting, because here you are as a bodybuilder, you want to get rid of all the water and your body's naturally wanting to hold it on because it's smarter than you. But then you also see an increase in oxidative stress, fibroids, and hormonal imbalance. And a lot of people, like we were talking about, the fertility issues. So what we're seeing mostly, and I've touched on this, the insulin dysregulation is causing that weight gain, the hypoglycemia, inflammation, and also an increase in cholesterol. I had a client come to me saying, Sarah, I haven't changed anything. I eat clean, all organic, all wild meats, all organic vegetables. I work out, nothing's changed. Look at my cholesterol. And her cholesterol just shot up over the last 2 years. It was crazy. So if that's showing up on your blood test, this might be part of the issue. So that's what's going on. Now, the good news for those of you who chose to get the jab and now are regretting it, honestly, we're all in the same boat. Whether you had COVID, you got it, you didn't get the vaccine, the spike protein has infiltrated itself into all of us. And I can tell you, with my 2 young daughters, my one daughter, during her menstrual cycle, the pain was a normal 3, cramps, I don't feel good, I go to school, I live my life. That 3 went to a 12, to the point where she's on the floor, sweating, yelling at me to knock her out because she can't handle the pain.
Oh.
And I don't know about any other moms out there, but there's nothing worse than your child in pain. And she's all of 115 pounds. She would take 3 Advil and they wouldn't even touch the pain. And I, of course, don't love Advil, but you got to do what you got to do. But it wasn't even working. So what that forced me into doing is to come up with a protocol that has alleviated her pain and reversed the damage, which I can happily say she now had her cycle came this week, and she was in a bad mood, but that's about it. And there was no pain and no need to take Advil. So there is an ability to reverse this. Okay. So iodine is, I've always loved my iodine. I've always talked about iodine and the benefits for the thyroid and providing the 4 and the 3 for T4 and T3. But what it's doing with the spike protein. Iodine's utilized by the full endocrine system to regulate estrogen production in both men and women. Men are seeing this estrogen dominance, the man boobs and the backed up liver. All of these things are compiling because, your immune system and your detox pathways, it's like, what's the tipping point? Here we go. We're loading up all the toxins. We've got the processed foods. We've got more radiation. We've got 5G. We've got the chemicals in our water. Just read a report about the chemicals in our tap water. It's a lot higher than what we presumed. And then you've got the spike protein. So now our body's like, I give up. I don't know what to do, right? Yeah. So the acceleradine is helping regulate the hormones that has been disrupted by the spike protein, but it's also used to clean the blood so the liver can optimally produce estrogen binding protein, which helps clean up the excess estrogens and toxins. And then the spike protein, like I mentioned, interrupts normal apoptosis, which is the body's way of killing the weak and diseased cells like cancer cells or other disease cells where it just can't repair those cells. So the iodine actually induces this apoptosis. So it says, oh, we'll get rid of that one and we'll make new cells. Apoptosis is also used during fertility and during puberty, those 2 times in life more than any other time in life, because you've got that fetus and the teenager that is changing their bodies. They're going through this growth. That's a lot of apoptosis happening. Apoptosis also happens when you have a wound, when you have a scar, and it's doing the cellular turnover to help repair. Well, the spike protein is stopping that. So this is my point in saying all these people with diseases that were in remission all of a sudden are not anymore, because the body is not able to do its normal apoptosis. Acceleradine induces apoptosis of the damaged cells, and then it bypasses the disruption from the spike protein and may help reverse the damage done to the DNA by the spike protein. This is the only supplement that I've seen be able to do this. And it gets really chemical and scientific in how it does that as well. So iodine. When I tell people, and they're overwhelmed with their health issues, what should I take? I'm like, start with the iodine, the acceleradine. And the acceleradine is the only iodine that's monoatomic, that gets to all 100 trillion cells in the body. But it also helps with cellular and mitochondrial health by increasing the ATP by 18 times. And your health is essentially your mitochondria's health. Yep. So when your mitochondria is healthy, then you'll be healthy. Wade, I was actually thinking about you the other day, because the trend of keto has gone down, and you can be vegan, vegetarian, keto, paleo, whatever it is. I think the next thing is the mitochondrial diet. It's all about the mitochondria, right?
Yeah, a lot of people in the performance side of things are looking at mitochondrial function. So for people who don't know, that's your energy production furnace inside the cell. It used to be a bacteria and eventually fused inside our cell and produces associated things. So some things that people can look at. One of the reasons for anti-aging is cardiovascular health. So in endurance training or HIIT training or some combination. Peter Attia's got some great work on that. If you want to check him out on his new longevity book. I also like NAD treatments. So intravenous NAD treatments over 5 days. Periodically, I do every 4 months. I cannot believe the difference in energy that produces. That's extraordinary as well. And then atmospheric cellular training. So that's where you're in a capsule that takes you up in the atmosphere, like up to like as high as 23,000 feet, and then drops you down and back and forth to help improve this. You can see it at some of the biohacking centers that are out there. Those are areas that I used to go from last November. I did a bodybuilding. I did the Mr. Olympia, started running. 6 months later, I ran my first marathon using that as augmentation for my training, for endurance training, because I wouldn't have been able to do that. Most bodybuilders don't run that well. And so I wanted to experiment, and it works. So supporting your mitochondria is massive, and iodine is a big aspect of that as well. So people need to be doing that regularly and really looking at their cardiovascular health over the long term if they want to live long and strong. I think it's really underestimated, its lifestyle enhancement.
So 2 things I want to touch on. It's so funny that you mentioned the altitude. It's called the CVAC, or one system is. I actually did it yesterday. I was telling my daughter that I got on the rowing machine. I have to row too, because they're rowers, and so I have to try to compete with my kids. Anyway, so I did it, and then this morning I got on the rowing machine. I'm like, gosh, this feels easy, and I went 4 times as long as I was planning on going. And I thought, oh, it's because I did the CVAC yesterday. So it does. And what else it does is it squeezes the cells to get the toxins out.
That's right.
Right? We need to get the toxins out. And what else iodine does through chemical displacement or halogen displacement, and go back to chemistry, is on the periodic table, you've got iodine and fluoride, bromide, and chlorine, right? And so if you have enough iodine saturated in your body, it displaces all of these other halogen toxins, and even will displace lead and mercury. So remember, I'm talking about the stacking of all the hits that our body's getting, the spike protein, the radiation, the toxins from our water and our food, now our lab meat, right? We're growing lab meat that we're supposed to eat. So you need to protect yourself from the inside and from the outside. From the inside, being saturated with iodine, your cells don't have the receptor sites are filled with the iodine molecules, so it won't take in the other toxins, and it will kick out the other toxins. So it's helping your thyroid, your metabolism, but it's in reversing the damage done by the spike protein, but then also kicking out the radiation and the heavy metals. It's also an antioxidant, helps destroy the disease cells. And then it also helps break up fatty liver, which we're going to come back to, because remember, you got to love your liver. And I always go back to my liver. So next, what we're seeing is almost everybody is hypothyroid. Whether you were 3 years ago or not, most people are suffering from suboptimal thyroid. And because the thyroid is a master endocrine gland, most people are experiencing this from the higher toxic burden, the environment and the food supply. And that's why we came up with accelerated thyroid that complements the iodine. It actually is enhanced with scalar frequencies to heal the thyroid, to detox the thyroid, because the thyroid loves to collect mercury and all of the halogens. So your thyroid might not be working because of all of the toxins that are hitting it. Now, the thyroid is the bridge to brain and body. So if we cut off the thyroid, we're walking around in a fog, right? So it's not just hitting your physical energy, but your mental energy and your ability to be enlightened, and your spiritual health, your mood, anxiety, depression. That's why it's really important to make sure you're taking care of your thyroid. Another thing that people are using is a compound or an enzyme called serapeptase, and I like the brand Sara, or the one Ceramend. It's a proteolytic enzyme that I think of it as like the vacuum cleaner. It breaks down the spike protein, and the spike protein has protein and lipid components, so that breaks those down and acts as a vacuum cleaner and cleaning out the body. It's anti-inflammatory. And this is actually one of the things that my daughter said, Mom, I took my Ceramend and my cramps started going away because it was reducing the inflammation and the pain. And believe me, my kids are not going to lie, and they're going to tell me when things don't work. So that is something that I use, and I really coach my clients into use daily. We can also use a supplement called Nuke No More, which helps with detoxing from the radiation, non-ionizing and ionizing radiation. And with the increase in radioactivity, the spike protein's cascade of effects is magnified, damaging the DNA. Now, this might be a little controversial, but the jab is known to have some of radiation in there too. So
for people who don't want to investigate this a little deeper on radiation and its impact on viruses, single cell organisms, etc. So there is in Russia, they've been tracking this for that. You can actually go online and you can track the radiation levels on a day-to-day basis. And recently, we've been experiencing a considerable amount of solar flare activity, which radically exposes us to increased levels of radiation. Now, radiation impacts DNA. It impacts how all of our cells function. It impacts our energy. Some people might have noticed that they felt really tired for some days. Oftentimes, if you check the solar forecast, you'll start to see that there are solar flares which are impacting it. Now, the smaller an organism is, the more the impact of its behavior happens. So when you're talking spike proteins, viruses, single cell organisms, if you're going into that, or anything at that, really, really small level, we'll call it, the effect is amplified dramatically. And what's fascinating is for people who you talked about the astrological side, the Mayan calendar was actually built on a conception model, was based at the radiation exposure during the time of conception relative to the sun, which rotates at a different level than it rotates like this way, while we're going around the sun like this. For those who didn't see, that's and then these radio frequencies build up and impact our DNA. Mm-hmm. So this isn't woo-woo. This is actual real science. I first heard about radiation impact from my friend who ended up being the head of the Gottlieb Space Center and developed a whole new understanding of plasma in the top of our atmosphere, explained to me radiation and its impact on biological organisms. So yes, this is real science and real physics. So a lot of biologists, though, are not taught about the impact of radiation on biology. It's oversight. And I think that's a real big mistake on understanding.
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip, rapid cheat meal relief. Research shows that cheat meals can actually be an effective way to boost your metabolism. One key weight loss hormone, leptin, can be increased by up to 30% following a cheat meal. The challenge with the cheat meals is that all those extra calories and lower food quality can be hard to digest, which means you could be totally sidelined with a food coma after big cheat meals. The solution is to take strong digestive enzymes like masszymes, which will help rapidly digest and break down the extra food. 3 to 5 capsules before or right after your cheat meal can make a huge difference in how you feel following the cheat meal. If it's a cheat day with multiple large meals, you might want to go up to 10 capsules or higher to help you power through all that food. To save 10% on masszymes, go to masszymes.com. That's MASSZYMES.com and enter the code CHEAT10 at checkout.
I mean, radiation from our cell phones, just take that, is known to cause cancer. It says it on in the box when you buy your iPhone. So this is known, and then it's just amplified by the 5G and all of the other radiation in our life. I mean, you can't, when talking about iodine, and people worry about overdosing on iodine, and there's other experts out there saying be careful about taking iodine. Well, they're taking iodine from the Asias that have been contaminated because of the radiation in Fukushima and Chernobyl. Our iodine comes from South America. But most other iodines come from radio-contaminated sources. And that's why, yes, you have to be careful of taking that iodine, right? Our point of taking iodine is to repel radiation and detox when you're taking a supplement that is actually full of the toxins that you're trying to get rid of. So
yeah. As a sidebar on that, I want to add on that. And this is one of my pet peeves in the entire nutritional supplement industry. And one of the reasons why I think the medical industry has some validity in its attacks against the natural supplement industry, but also there's an aspect of their own unawareness. And for example, in a case like it says iodine is good for this, or this nutrient is good for this, or whatever, and then they'll do a study. And the quality controls of the supplement haven't been implemented perhaps in the study. And you get a variance in results because the quality of the product utilized or suggested in the study is going to tell you whether that actually produced results. So you may get a false negative because it's a low quality product. 95% of the products on the market today, I would say, fall under the low quality product, whether that's through people just trying to make a buck and take advantage of you, or people who are inadvertently just not doing their due diligence on product sourcing and information. I think it's a combination of both of those things when you're buying supplements. So I wanted to qualify that, because the best supplement companies and people who advocate supplements are people who had problems themselves, couldn't solve the issue, and figured out how to figure that particular area of expertise out and built a supplement company around it because they wanted to guarantee the quality and source of their product. I've been in the industry for 30 years. That's how I started. It's how you started. I can name dozens of the best companies in the world, and they all have the same type of story. So yeah. Product quality, product quality, product quality. You don't know the result of a product until you've tried the best. So,
and I want to add to that. So we had one of our top sellers, Accelerated Keto, which is an intermittent fasting supplement that helps suppress appetite and cleanse the liver. And we ran out, and we were trying to get manufacturer going. But what was holding us up, Wade, is we are very particular with our ingredients. And we had one small ingredient that was going into it. It wasn't even one of the main ingredients. We had to buy 5 different companies' source of it to get one that passed the mold and bacteria test.
Yep.
And what happened was we would go back to the other 4 and say, your product has 10 times the amount of bacteria and mold in it. How can you even pass this? And they say, oh, well, it passes these other guidelines over here. Well, you take a supplement with a random ingredient in there that has a little too much mold or bacteria, and it trips up your immune system, and you have a side effect, and you think, oh, well, I shouldn't be taking this supplement because of this, I'm going to have a horrible reaction, and it's causing a reaction to my immune system, where really you're just reacting to the mold or the bacteria. Mm-hmm. And that's where we said, absolutely, we would rather be out of stock than to put out a suboptimal product. And my clients, of course, were very grateful. And it's just that you have to be that good, and that keep your standards high. And it's not easy in this industry because there's so much competition out there, but just know that that's where we are at. And I have family members, my husband and my daughter, if they have too much, if they have moldy food or eat grapes or peas, they will get flared up in a sinus infection. So it's not going to happen in my house, and it's not going to happen in my business.
There you go. I love it. And quality. Let's talk some more about the spike protein component.
Yeah. So another supplement that we've seen that has helped a lot of people is calcium D-glucarate. And what that does, it helps with the liver detox pathway. And this is a way for a lot of people reach for DIM supplements to help with the estrogen dominance, right? Well, DIM is full of sulfur vegetables, but concentrated. And we found that in the last couple of years, because of glyphosate and GMOs, the sulfur detox pathways are backing up. So using a DIM product is actually going to backfire and not help with the liver detoxification. You can circumvent that with calcium D-glucarate, and it helps bind the toxins, including the estrogens that contribute to the excess weight gain or anything that's happening from the spike protein. My silver, the accelerated silver, helps devitalize, and I got to be careful with how to talk about that. All viruses, bacteria, fungus. We actually program it for this specific virus. So with healing frequencies. And so remember how I was talking about how I'll get a rash that comes out if I am exposed to COVID or the spike protein. Well, the silver is helping boost your immune system to help all viral activity, all bacterial, all fungus, all candida. It's not like an antibiotic where you have to make sure it's a bacteria, right? You don't take an antibiotic for a virus or something else. You have to be very careful. Well, the accelerated silver fights all the foreign pathogens. But you're going to love this. So 2 of my favorite supplements from the spike protein is Capex and Magnesium Breakthrough. And why? The spike protein, what we're finding is inhibiting the protein and fat metabolism in the liver because the liver's backed up. And that leads to fat malabsorption and protein being converted into fat. And what I've noticed in my own family is that people are nauseous after they eat too heavy of a protein fat meal. Well, the K-PEX helps with that. And it, as you know, it improves the fat and protein digestion, and it boosts ATP. I mean, you can speak more to the K-PEX and what it does, but I can tell you it's been a really great thing for my clients, and especially on the low carb diet when they're eating more protein and a little more fat. I do recommend people, if they're feeling nauseous after they eat, they need to, number one, do a liver flush. And I've made it super easy to do, and I coach you through the whole thing, but to lower the fat intake. Not necessarily, I am not a proponent of a high fat ketogenic diet for everybody. My son, who is extremely healthy, needs about 4,000 calories a day to just get by, can eat all the fat he wants. My husband, not so much. Me, not so much. It's very individualized.
Yeah. And this is where genetic testing is really important. Matt and I used to have this argument because he does very well on a ketogenic diet. And I would hit a certain amount of fat in my diet every time I tested it, and I would just feel awful if it didn't work for me. Well, along came genetic testing. Turns out that I don't do well in metabolizing fats. I do really well at metabolizing carbohydrates. He's the opposite. So we were literally inverted versions of this. Yeah. And when he developed K-PEX, he had me in mind. And he put 4 different types of lipase in it with our triphase proteolytic program, which is in all of our enzyme products, both the vegzymes and masszymes, which are kind of developed for different types of diets. But those lipolytic enzymes will help break down the fat that you're intaking. The proteolytic enzymes break down protein, of course. So that's how the mechanisms work. And we just don't make enough enzymes anymore in our food because we're the only species that eats enzymatically deficient diets because we cook our food, essentially. So knowing your genetics is very helpful in determining what diet will be helpful, be more likely to be successful than other types of diet.
Yep. And then with the magnesium breakthrough. So as you always talk about, 80% of people are deficient. But what we're seeing with the spike protein is it depletes GABA, and the magnesium breakthrough helps with relaxation and sleep, but also improves the GABA naturally. Now, some people also need to actually add in GABA itself, but GABA is depleted. And then the other thing that we're finding is copper is being depleted. So the spike protein depletes copper. But also, what was everybody taking to boost their immune system over the last 3 years? Zinc. And,
right. And if you don't have enough copper, your zinc doesn't work right.
Well, the zinc and copper compete with each other, right? So you need both. I'm not anti-zinc, but now we are all depleted of copper. Now, the other thing that we'll get into in a second is that the insulin resistance and the standard American diet and processed food cause copper depletion as well. So you've got all of these things working, and copper is the hidden hero in fat loss, and more, it's almost like magnesium, where it's needed for thousands of enzymatic reactions in the body. It's needed for hair, for skin, for bone, for fat burning, for brain health, for anemia. Most people who are anemic, it's not about iron, it's about getting the iron that's in your body to where it needs to go. Iron is rusting us from the inside out. Not hardly anybody needs to supplement with iron unless you just had a blood transfusion or something, but the copper is there to get it to where it needs to go. And that's why I came out with the accelerated scalar copper, because most coppers have a 5 to 10% absorption rate, and this has 99%, and it's also programmed with frequencies to help improve the efficacy. But when you look at the increase in insulin resistance over the last couple of years because of the spike protein causing issues with insulin, Then you've got people that have become sedentary, right? We're living at home, we're staying at home, right? We're sitting there, and right in 5 feet away from me, I've got my pantry, and it could be filled with processed foods, and you've got alcohol and gambling and all the addictive behaviors. So all of that is contributing to an increase in uric acid. Copper helps decrease uric acid and obesity by blocking what's called the polyol pathway, which is responsible for converting glucose into sorbitol and fructose. So fructose is what's causing fatty liver and insulin resistance. And we're not talking about the fructose in fruit and vegetables, but the fructose that's added to the processed foods. And not only have the processed foods been filled with fructose and seed oils and GMOs and artificial sweeteners, but they've taken out the fiber. So then you've got this really sharp rise in insulin and blood sugar, and then that fructose is causing this copper depletion, causing an increase in uric acid and acidity and fatty liver disease. And then that is leading to all of these other diseases. If your liver's not functioning, you can just say goodbye to your health. I mean, it is literally, that is your master detoxification organ. Yes, you need your kidneys as well, and there's some other things involved, but it's the liver. And so what we're finding is that copper is really, really important for the spike protein, and to reverse this insulin resistance, fatty liver, uric acid triad that has been going on as well.
Yeah, in Chinese medicine, the liver is the second heart, and detoxification, I think, on a regular basis is something people really need to focus, especially if they have a sluggish metabolism or they're not feeling themselves. And one of the interesting things I always find there's always some interesting aspects to trends, and we saw intermittent fasting and time restricted eating and all these things that have kind of popped up over the last few years, and people advocating for it. And well, what's going on there? And I do believe that it's providing a longer cycle of detoxification in the body than, stuffing yourself with food. So people need to recognize we don't need to eat as much as we do all the time, and we don't need to eat as frequently as we do all the time. And starvation and not having enough calories or food was a big issue until relatively recently in the human condition. So we have all these mechanisms that work really well if we're not eating that much. And we don't have very many mechanisms that we're eating a lot. And then now we've accelerated the toxic exposure to all these things, which is further putting stress on the system. And then you add, the spike protein on top of it. And that's like the cherry on top of a metabolic sundae. It's not good,
Yep. And I had Dr. Rick Johnson on my show the other day, and he talks about the switch to survival mode. And when the body's under threat from the toxins, from the radiation, from the standard American diet, it lowers metabolic rate. It increases insulin resistance in order to store more fat as a survival mechanism. We need the emergency stores. Our body's smarter than us. Just like when you were talking about the bodybuilder wants to dehydrate themselves, and the body's like, nope, I'm going to hold on to every ounce of water I can for survival. And then so it will also store those toxins in fat cells. It makes new fat cells and makes the existing fat cells even larger. So I do incorporate the accelerated keto, which we will be changing the name to accelerated fast, because it's not even a keto supplement. It helps suppress the appetite and lower insulin resistance and help suppress those cravings. And then it also works on cleansing the liver at the same time on a daily basis, which I love, because a lot of people are afraid of doing a liver flush. So it's cleansing the liver and actually converting the saturated fat in that liver fat into unsaturated fat. So your body's going to be able to burn it much better. But what it does is some people think, oh, fasting is a stressor on the body and it can cause the brain to say, no, I'm going to actually hold on to more weight. Well, the accelerated keto actually calms the brain down, increases the serotonin and the GABA. So you're relaxed while you're doing, because there's no stress. I've got thousands of calories to burn on my body for energy. I don't need to worry. Let's let it go. But as you're detoxing from all of this stuff that we're talking about, you have to remember that the fat cells, as you lose weight, the fat cells are letting go of toxins. So you got to bind up those toxins, right? Because the body's going to have a hard time flushing them all out. And we use the accelerated detox powders to soak up all those toxins, to take them out gently through the intestines versus burdening the liver and the kidneys anymore. But when you're thinking your body's under threat, it's natural for the body to store more fat cells, because that's where it's encapsulating the toxins to get it out of the blood. And then it's also going to lower ATP. One thing that was really interesting to me is Dr. Rick Johnson was saying that fructose and high fructose corn syrup and these processed foods not only don't give you energy, and we were talking about ATP and mitochondrial health being the true cellular energy. Well, fructose actually lowers ATP. So not only is it not giving you energy, it's stealing energy from you. And I had this conversation with my daughter the other day. I'm like, you are trying to get energy for your workouts with some applesauce, and you should be eating the apple and eating the real food and having the building blocks of protein for your energy, because that's actually stealing energy from you. And then it's also increasing inflammation in the body and causing just the cascade of issues.
Yeah, so it's a lot. So let's kind of recap a little bit. So we've all been exposed to this spike protein. The spike protein is accelerating oxidative stress, and that is showing up in a variety of different components. So maybe we can, that we kind of addressed, whether it's, blood sugar or fertility rates or increased weight gain, dysregulation of your hormones, right? Constriction of the blood vessels and stuff. We've suggested a bunch of different things, and I know that you've worked on it extensively. Could you perhaps maybe say, okay, we're in an unavoidable situation here. Don't panic. Here's what you need to do. What do people need to do, and how long do you advocate them do it, or how frequently do you advocate for them if they're concerned about this? They're maybe experiencing some of the symptoms that we discussed. What can they do?
And number one is the accelerated iodine.
Okay. How much do they need, and when should they take
so
it?
You want to be high dosing it, because it's because of that chemical displacement that we talked about. So 25 drops 3 times a day. But what you do is you start slow. You start with 3 drops 3 times a day, because remember, it's detoxing the cells at the same time. So if you start with 75 drops all of a sudden, you're going to have a Herx reaction probably. You cannot overdose on this iodine. You might be uncomfortable, but if you take too much, it is not going to harm you. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows that. But it is helping you on so many levels. And so if there's one thing to do, it's the accelerated iodine. You can follow that up, and we didn't even talk about the accelerated ancient salt that you love and you put on your food and everything. But that salt helps plump up the volume to help the toxins flush out of the body. And it also is enhanced with scalar frequencies to reorganize the DNA. So it works in conjunction with the iodine. And if you then want to do the full radiation protocol, you add in the nuke no more. And you really only have to do that where you do 2 full bottles to zero out your body. And then you can take, and that's on a daily dose. And then you can back it off to 4 times a week just for maintenance. I would then recommend making sure you're looking at your thyroid. If you have unexplained weight gain, if you're feeling slow, sluggish, the accelerated thyroid, that is a game changer for most everybody. It was a brand new product and quickly skyrocketed to one of my best sellers. So
where do people get all this? Where do people find out more and can order this right immediately? I would highly recommend that they're doing it. If you're spinning this, I think it's a very powerful combination that you've put together here. Where can people find that?
acceleratedhealthproducts.com is where all the supplements are. If you want to read more about what I'm talking about, sarabantahealth.com is where all of my articles and podcasts are, and it will link to the store as well. I also, as much as you can, get off the processed foods. Start eating whole foods. I don't care if you're vegan, if you're carnivore, if you are paleo, keto, whatever you are, whole foods. I would rather you have a sweet potato than a ketogenic protein bar. Even those processed protein healthy bars, they have been processed to put into a package, and you don't know what exactly is going into that. And clean your water. Make sure you're drinking clean water. That is really important. Exercise, do lymphatic drainage, whether it's doing jump rope or a lymphatic machine you can go to, or get on a vibration machine. That lymphatic system in your body is needing help because that's the backbone to your immune system. Accelerated silver. So the silver is going to keep it so the spike protein and and any viruses, bacteria, fungus is going to stay out of your body. When your immune system is attacking something over here, then it's going to be suppressed and be exposed to more candida and fungus and parasites and all of this other stuff that's going on. And lastly, I would say lower your stress, work on your meditation, your gratitude, get out of the state of fear. Your fear is stored in your kidneys swell, they impact your adrenals, and then we're all chronic fatigue because of this global fear that has been put upon us, right? And your liver, cleanse your liver. Join my group coaching, and I will help you through liver flushes a couple times a year. Super easy to do, but the liver is where you hold your frustration and your anger. So all of these emotions are a big part of your health, which Wade, you and I were talking about before we came on. And I asked my son yesterday. He's very in tune. He's 20 years old. He's gone through issues with leukemia as a 9-year-old. He then catapulted to being a record holder at the national level in rowing in high school. And so he's been around the block. I said, Jackson, how much of your health do you think is in your mind? And he says 70%. And I said, that's about right. I mean, if you have a mental block about what your health is, these supplements, the diet, it's not going to do any good.
Yeah, it's so mental health. You have to feed your mind correctly and do on a negativity detox diet.
Right.
Also a great thing. Sara, this has been awesome. Again, you presented a wealth of information. We have the links of this podcast and where you can get all the Accelerated Health products, as well as listen to your podcast to keep informed. So you can go to the links that are associated below. And I just want to thank you for joining us today on the Awesome Health Podcast.
Thanks, Wade. I always love being on.
Right. So there you have it, folks. Another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. I'm Wade T. Lightheart from Bioptimizers. If you enjoyed this podcast, share it with someone you love. If you don't like it, send me an email. I love to respond and see how we can make things better. And of course, we'll see you on the very next episode. Take care.
At Bioptimizers, our mission is to fix digestion. And a cornerstone of digestion is gut flora. P3OM is our patented probiotic formula. In fact, we call it the Navy SEALs of probiotics. You see, strong proteolytic or protein digesting activity is paramount to having a healthy gut flora. And of course, P3OM provides that. The good news is, unlike weaker probiotics, P3OM survives the digestion process. What it does is it basically multiplies the good guys while protecting you against pathogens, or what some people call the bad guys. P3OM really helps to rebuild your digestion. And what that allows you to do is to maximize nutrient uptake, energy, and metabolism. To find out more of how P3OM can help you, go to www.bioptimizers.com.
Thank you for listening to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. You can find more information at bioptimizers.com.